Sunday, and with clearer spells developing elsewhere, the wind's just starting to ease down a touch. Could see a touch of frost in some rural spots. Town and city temperatures holding up at 4 to 6 degrees, locally down closer to freezing though in rural areas. As we go into Sunday then, a much quieter day on the whole. Lighter winds, more in the way of sunshine around. Still 1 or 2 showers, mainly up towards the north and northwest. Still wintry over the hilltops in Scotland. And notice there's rain just gathering out towards the far west by the very end of the day. In the sunshine and with lighter winds, it should feel fairly pleasant. Temperatures peaking at 13 Celsius in the southeast. That's 55 in Fahrenheit. And as for the start of the new working week then, things will turn very wet out towards the west, quite blustery winds developing once again. Whereas out towards the north and east, we hold on to some bright weather at times, and temperatures not doing too badly still, certainly down towards the southeast, peaking again at around about 11 or 12 degrees. But things will generally turn more unsettled during the week ahead, so rain at times, and temperatures close to the seasonal average.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still time to win our giveaway packed with seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash to make your bank account bloom. Plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. 2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I hope you're having an excellent Saturday. It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, the Archdeacon of Liverpool has entered a race row by saying, let's have anti-whiteness. The Church of England is now on its knees for all the wrong reasons. You will not believe this story. I'll be dealing with it in just a moment. Also this weekend sees the 80th anniversary of the Great Escape, when a group of brave and ingenious British soldiers managed to flee from a Nazi war camp. The daughter of one of the survivors tells this extraordinary and heroic story shortly. And in the big story, how will King Charles be able to deal with the many tragic issues that now face his family? I'll be asking his biographer, revered historian Robert Hardman. And you won't want to miss this in my Take at 10. England played an international football game today wearing a defaced England flag. The world's largest sportswear company has insulted an entire country, and I'll be giving Nike a ticking off at 10. You won't want to miss it. Nike ticking off. This show isn't just thrown together. 2 hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. Mark Dolan tonight is your perfect Saturday night in. Lots to get through. The most shocking story about racism in the Church of England after the headlines with Sam Francis.
Mark, thanks very much and good evening from the newsroom. It's just gone 9 o'clock and the latest developments in our top story of the day. The Ukrainian president has now accused Vladimir Putin of attempting to, he says, deflect blame for the massacre at a concert hall near Moscow last night, which killed at least 143 people. Volodymyr Zelensky has described the Russian president's apparent attempt to blame Ukraine as absolutely untenable and absurd, though neither Putin nor the FSB have presented any proof so far of that link with Ukraine. Meanwhile, the United States has strongly condemned the attack, with US intelligence services saying they believe it was carried out by a branch of the Islamic State terror group. In a statement to the nation last night, President Putin said the terrorists can expect punishment and condemned what he called the barbaric attack.
All the executors, planners and those who ordered this crime will be rightfully and inevitably punished, whoever they are and whoever directed them. Let me repeat, we will identify and punish everyone who stood behind the terrorists who prepared this attack against Russia, against our people.
To royal news now from the UK, where Prince Harry has privately reached out to Prince William and the Princess of Wales following news of her cancer diagnosis. The Duchess of Sussex has also been in contact with the couple amid reports of feeling blindsided by the announcement. Meanwhile, cancer research say Kate's high-profile cancer diagnosis has led to significant upticks in visits to their website and increased public awareness. Well, following Kate's emotional video message on Friday night, there have been an outpouring of public support across the country. And we've been speaking to people in Birmingham today who've shared their hope for Kate's privacy and an end to the recent speculation.
It's got shocking, really. She's got young kids, she's got a family. I think that's probably the more upsetting thing about everything. The public eye and things doesn't really matter at the minute, does it?
I think it was a brave decision, and I think that will just awaken people's minds to how troublesome cancer is, and to be checked out themselves.
Yeah, it's very shocking really, and obviously it's 1 in 2 people are getting cancer now, so I think we all should be a little bit more respectful and just let her get on with it, and to recover with her family and just lay off her a little bit. I think she had a lot of scrutiny over the last few weeks.
News now from the sporting world. England's World Cup kit for 2026 will face a new FA vetting process. That's after backlash over the multicoloured St George's cross on their Euro 2024 shirt. Nike has refused to rule out similar redesigns in the future, sparking yet more concern, with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak warning against messing with the national flag. Reports from the Telegraph newspaper suggest the FA are now planning an urgent review following claims that the person who signed off on the new shirt had failed to spot the change on the back of its collar. And sad news tonight that the knife crime campaigner Richard Taylor has died today at the age of 75 after his long battle with prostate cancer. His 10-year-old son Damilola was killed in 2000 in what became one of Britain's highest profile crimes. The loss led to Richard and his late wife Gloria setting up a trust aimed at supporting disadvantaged young people. He said his son's death was the result of enormous problems in society, but that he wanted his legacy to be one of hope. Police are appealing for witnesses after a boy aged just 12 was arrested today for stabbing a girl. We understand that incident happened shortly before 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. The teenage victim was taken to a London hospital to receive treatment, though we now know she is in a stable condition. Officers are urging for anyone with information, including CCTV footage or video of the incident, to contact them. Meanwhile, in Cheltenham, police are urgently searching for 3 missing siblings who are subject to a court order that prevents them from being in the care of their parents. 3-year-old Paulie, 5-year-old Jolene and 8-year-old Betsy were last seen with their mother on Friday. Their whereabouts now, though, is unknown. The Gloucestershire Force say they are concerned for the children's welfare and they're asking for anyone with information to contact the police immediately. More than 80 pubs, clubs and sports centres across the country will receive a funding boost to help keep their doors open. It's part of the government's Levelling Up programme, which aims to create jobs and support communities. It will also see the curtains rise once again at the Edinburgh Film House, 2 years after it was forced to close. Following a campaign backed by actors Ewan Bremner and Brian Cox, the independent cinema will get a funding boost worth around £1.5 million. And if you've ever wondered what happened to Agatha Christie's typewriter, well, mystery solved. It's set to go on display as part of a crime fiction exhibition at Cambridge University Library. We understand her dictaphone will also be part of that show, along with the typescript for her final novel featuring the famed detective Hercule Poirot. Murder by the Book, which opens today, is exploring the fondness in Britain for fictional sleuths from Sherlock Holmes to Inspector Morse. Those are the headlines. More to come with Mark throughout the evening. In the meantime, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thanks, Sam. Welcome to a busy Mark Dolan tonight. In my big opinion, the Archdeacon of Liverpool has entered an extraordinary race row by saying, let's have anti-whiteness. I'll be dealing with that shocking story in just 1 minute's time. You won't believe your ears. In the big story, how will King Charles be able to deal with the many tragic issues now facing his family? I'll be asking his biographer, revered historian Robert Hardman. This weekend sees the 80th anniversary of the Great Escape, when a group of brave and ingenious British soldiers managed to flee from a Nazi war camp. The daughter of one of the survivors tells this extraordinary and heroic story shortly. And in my Take a 10, England played an international football game today wearing a defaced England flag. The world's largest sportswear company has insulted an entire country, and I'll be giving Nike a ticking off at 10. You won't want to miss it. Plus, how about this? Are men-only clubs sexist? Politics legend Christine Hamilton goes head-to-head with showbiz icon Christopher Biggins live in the studio. And tomorrow's front page is at 10:30 with 3 top pundits who haven't been told what to say, who don't follow the script, and normally who don't agree with me. TV personality and broadcaster Precious Muir, former Conservative MP and farmer Neil Parish, and leadership coach and speaker Adrian Hayes. Plus, the most important part of the show, your emails. They come straight to my laptop, mark@gbnews.com. I read out all your opinions, good, bad and indifferent. And this show has a golden rule, especially on a Saturday night. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So, a big 2 hours to come. I'll be dealing with Nike and an insult to a whole country at 10. But first, my big opinion. The Archdeacon of Liverpool, who boasts the poshest name in all Christendom, Miranda Threlfall Holmes, put quite the cat among the pigeons this week by tweeting the following. She wrote, I went to a conference on whiteness last autumn. It was very good, very interesting, and made me realise whiteness is to race as patriarchy is to gender. So yes, let's have anti-whiteness and let's smash the patriarchy. That's not anti-white or anti-men, it's anti-oppression. Just let that sink in for a moment. This is a top cleric. Let's have anti-whiteness. Oh dear. And how unfortunate that this lady of the cloth is white herself. So she'll have to cancel herself. I don't know how you cancel yourself. How do you cancel yourself? It would take a miracle, wouldn't it? But then she is a very holy lady, so I guess anything is possible. Well, on the day that she put out that tweet, she was no doubt hoping she could turn water into wine, and a lot of it, when she read the responses, which were not pretty. Hell hath no fury. Her tweet has now been seen by almost 1 million people, probably larger than the flock she gets on a Sunday morning, let's be honest. With almost 1 million views, but just 209 likes. In social media terms, that's what we call death by ratio. The comedy actor James Dreyfus from Gimme 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 said the following: "Oh, grow up, what the heck is wrong with you? Why do you seek to divide when your job description is literally to bring people together? It's utterly grotesque." The revered comedian and co-host of the popular podcast Trigonometry, Konstantin Kissin, wrote, "This is actually true. Whiteness is to race as patriarchy is to gender, in that both are linguistic tricks used to invent things that only exist in the minds of over-educated fools." And last but not least, the brilliant tech author Dan Rice is, in my view, the most perceptive when he says, "Doesn't sound like Christianity. Are you sure you don't follow a different religion?" Well, he's absolutely right, because this is a deeply un-Christian statement. And I say that as a Christian myself. To demonise a whole group of people, and statistically the vast majority of her own congregation, goes against everything we know about Jesus Christ. Now, this archdeacon, who I've got no doubt is a lovely person and doubtless does great work in the community and is entitled to her view, absolutely. In my view, she does follow a very different religion altogether, or should I say cult. It is the Holy Church of Woke. In fact, the archdeacon looks to be a fully signed-up member. In her Twitter description about herself, she's got the inevitable pronouns she, her in there, therefore supporting the idea that you can change your sex and that men are women and vice versa. I've got to say, I'd love to know what the man above thinks of all of that. Or should I say the woman above? Or maybe God is gender neutral, who knows? Now, I'd speculate that this archdeacon likely supports the Church of England's decision to pay reparations for slavery, even though the Church's links to this awful crime are challenged by some historians like the brilliant Robert Toombs, for example. And either way, one has to wonder why leaky church roofs, education, community work, lonely pensioners and the homeless in the parish are not the exclusive recipients of the Church's wealth. Rather than atoning for crimes committed over a century ago in a country responsible for ending the whole wretched endeavour in the first place, none of it really makes sense. Of course not. This is the Church of Woke. Particularly this bizarre tirade against whiteness. Apart from the wild hypocrisy of this priest being white herself, did this presumably intelligent person, who has even published books no less, did she not worry that these comments and this view might be prejudicial, inflammatory, ignorant, tin-eared, or even, I don't know, racist in its own right? It certainly goes against everything Martin Luther King stood for. The leader of the civil rights movement in America dreamed of a colourblind society. But all the likes of this archdeacon can see is skin colour. And this supposedly Christian person is happy to condemn people that have the wrong kind. And with Archbishop Welby, who I do admire for a lot of things, campaigning against the Rwanda policy, which may or may not be workable, but is the only serious attempt to stop the humanitarian crisis that is the illegal crossings of the Channel, it's very clear that the Church of England have been increasingly captured by a progressive cult who will have you believe that our history is shameful, that open borders are compassionate, and that you are inherently a bad person if you have the wrong skin colour. Wow. With dwindling congregations and endless political rows, the Church of England is on its knees for all of the wrong reasons. And is it any wonder why? The kind of language used by this archdeacon is appalling, unchristian and wrong. May God forgive them. Now, I am a free speech absolutist, and the archdeacon is entitled to her view, no problem. Don't cancel her, don't fire her, not at all. Debate the issue that she's raised, but I'm horrified that she has made this remark. Let me know your thoughts, your reaction. Mark at gbnews.com. I'll get to your email shortly. But first, tonight's top pundits, in no particular order. We have TV personality and broadcaster Precious Muir, former Conservative MP, and farmer with quite a healthy livestock, Neil Parish, and leadership and coach and a speaker of public wisdom, Adrian Hayes. Folks, great to have all three of you with me. Precious Muir, let's have anti-whiteness. Your reaction?
I think for her to be a priest, I think it's quite shocking that she's sharing these kind of views on Twitter and she's going into such depth. I think that she has to realise that she has a responsibility for, you know, for the church that she's with. Obviously, Church of England, she's got responsibilities as that priest, and saying her personal views online is probably not going to give her the reaction she thought she was going to get.
Well, definitely. Now, you know
we're all children of God.
Well, aren't we?
I think, that she just said the wrong thing.
We're all brothers and sisters in the eyes of God. I don't care about skin colour. Martin Luther King dreamt of a colourblind society. This is the opposite.
100%, yeah. And I just think it's sad that she's gone on Twitter and said so many things, and obviously she didn't get the reaction that she expected. And I just don't know where she was going with that, to be honest. I don't know what she thought she was going to achieve.
Well, Neil Parish, perhaps what she's trying to do is point out that for centuries, white people have imposed their will on people of colour, and she wants to correct that great crime, you know, so-called white privilege. Perhaps she's got a point.
I don't think she does, and if she has a point, this is the wrong way of going about it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, being anti-anything when you are the church, I mean, we've got to get more people into church of every colour and every creed, but different types of
She's supposed to be uniting us together.
Exactly, bringing us all together, and all this is doing is, I mean, why if you had another of the archdeacons say she wants to be anti-black, how would that go down?
Yeah.
It would go down hugely badly, quite rightly so. And so, therefore, just because, you know, at the moment it seems to be almost fashionable, and this is crazy stuff, because, like I said, we as you said, Martin Luther King was absolutely right. It would be lovely that one day that we can, as a society, that we don't actually notice somebody's colour of skin.
Right, yeah. I think that you're supposed to just treat people as who they are and not the skin colour.
And I wish Martin Luther King's quote would be rewritten and reposted every day.
Well, he'd be cancelled if he was around now, wouldn't he?
He probably judge people not by the colour of the skin, but by the quality of their character. It's so true.
It is very true.
Mark, I think my point, if this was just one errant archbishop, there's sort of a few oddbods in all societies, but it's becoming quite endemic in the Church of England. Look, I work with all religions. I'm out there, and, you know, the Buddhists don't talk about this sort of stuff. The Muslims don't.
Jewish people don't.
No, they teach the teachings of Buddha, of Muhammad, or whatever. Why is the Church of England, you know, going around this racism route and all the progressive stuff? And whether you agree with it or not, the priority has to be to teach the words and the life of Jesus Christ or God, whether you believe it or not.
And also get out to the community and engage and bring people into the church. And all of this is doing is just driving people away.
I know.
Especially, you know, I mean, rightly or wrongly, most of the rural areas are more white than any other colour, just because that's who are living there. And all of a sudden, let's alienate all of them, shall we? It's really sensible.
What's crying out, and it's not just the Church of England, it's the police, it's the NHS, it's the military even, this lack of leadership, and this is why I go, sorry, to the Archbishop of Canterbury, this is what we're lacking in so many of our institutions in the West.
But isn't it more than a lack of leadership? It's virtue signalling, isn't it?
It's a bit of both. I mean, it is.
I mean, I think it is. In some ways, it's a reverse. They're leading us in exactly the wrong place.
Right.
I mean, in the wrong direction.
I think she's basically trying to get black people and people of colour to be more. I think she's trying to bring that into the Church of England, but she's going the wrong way about it.
And is she not also trying to tackle racism? And isn't she pointing out that white people have dominated people of colour for centuries, and she wants to right that wrong, she wants to correct that? It's a great crime.
But I don't think it's her place to do so. She's a priest, and she's got to remember that she's a leader of a church, and that comes first. Her personal views are separate. That's it. And if she wants to do something positive... being anti-anything is not a positive thing. Her saying that she obviously wants people of colour and black people to come to the Church of England and she wants to then right the wrongs, that's fine, but the way she's gone about doing so is not the correct way.
But you see, some of the strongest churches in this country are where the black communities really engage with the Church of England. And so, you know, what is she doing? I mean, it's just
Well, I
crazy
was
stuff.
raised a Roman Catholic, and there were so many people of colour. There are so many people of colour.
Catholic.
Well, there you go, in our congregation. And it was my church was always a big melting pot.
It is.
And it should be.
As I said, everybody is children of children, and that's what we should, where we should start.
Adrian, last word.
Last word. If her tweet said anti-oppression, if you're going to be anti-oppression, should we have an anti-Ottoman Empire, anti-Romans, anti-Arabs, Spanish? I mean, human trafficking.
The French.
The French.
Definitely anti-Cornish. No,
absolutely.
I
Cornish
didn't say that, you know, representing a Devon seat.
Let's not lose my Cornish viewers.
Yeah, that's right.
They can be very feisty, can't you, folks? OK, listen, this debate is going to rage and rage. But coming up next in the big story, how will King Charles be able to deal with the many tragic issues now facing his family? I'll be asking his biographer, revered historian Robert Hardman. We're focusing on King Charles next.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
New framework from the Department of Transport is making sure that people will have a say on whether LTNs are introduced. So councils are going to have to really find out whether residents in an area actually want them or not. Let's talk to former racing driver and motoring journalist Amanda Stretton. Amanda, good to see you. I'm surprised that councils were introducing them without any sort of consultation already, to be honest.
I know, it's an absolute mystery, isn't it? Because certainly in the area that I live, the which is in Oxford, the implementation of the low traffic neighbourhoods has been, I mean, the report that we've seen today talks about the challenge that emergency services are having to people who actually need them. It's also impacting all the local businesses because people are being forced onto these main arterial routes. Those routes are now absolute gridlock. And what's been happening are these low traffic neighbourhoods have been decided by people who don't live in the area. They don't understand the way traffic moves, the times of day. And it has therefore just led to absolute chaos. So it makes perfect sense that if these schemes are going to be introduced, they're actually introduced with the support of the people who it's going to affect.
Well, and that's going to be problematic, don't you think? Because once everybody has talked it, discussed it, most residents are not going to want it.
I think you've got to understand, you know, if the vast majority of people are rejecting the proposal of a scheme that's due to be implemented, you've really got to question the viability and the sense in doing so. We want to encourage people to cycle, absolutely, but actually by causing these huge congested blocks, these arteries, I really don't think that that's necessarily the way forward.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
An extraordinary story, the Archdeacon of Liverpool saying, let's have anti-whiteness. How awkward and unfortunate that she's white herself. You couldn't make it up. Well, the emails are coming in thick and fast. This from, let's have a look, Kenneth, who says, hi, Mark. Let me talk about Justin Welby, he says. This man is the biggest problem the C of E has. If he and the Synod can agree to change the words of the Lord's Prayer and try to rewrite the Bible. What kind of fool is he? And Margaret, it's pretty controversial what Margaret has to say. She says, Mark, this is one of the reasons why we shouldn't have woman priests. What a disaster. Margaret, thank you for that. Keep those emails coming. Lots to get through, folks. But let's get more on the devastating royal news which broke yesterday and have a look at what impact this will have on the King, who is, of course, fighting his own battle against cancer. With me now is King Charles's biographer, Daily Mail writer and the author of New King, New Court, Charles III, The Inside Story, Robert Hardman. Welcome to you, Mark Dolan, tonight. Lovely to see you in the studio.
Thank you, Mark.
Is King Charles a mentally strong person? How will he be processing these news right now?
He's very mentally strong. I mean, he's someone who has, well, he's been in public life his entire life, but I mean, he's been through very grave royal crises over the years. He, if anyone within the institution, is capable of taking the long view of seeing that these things are enormous headline making. It's huge news. It's very sad news. But he's someone who has spent a large part of his life among his many patronages are a number of cancer charities, medical charities. He's seen the work that gets done, and so has the Princess of Wales. I mean, they're a lot of what they do involves meeting people who are facing very grave personal crises in various different ways. It sort of goes with the royal territory. So I think it does give them a sort of extra perspective, if you like. But I mean, he will be looking at the current situation. I mean, clearly he's known about the situation involving the Princess of Wales for some time. This won't have come as a shock to him in the way it's come to the shock to the rest of us in the last 24 hours. But yes, I mean, he's got all sorts of things to worry about, and this is, of course, one very serious one.
Does he compartmentalise? Will he take his concerns about his daughter-in-law and will he put that in a box in order to continue to be able to do his duties? How does the King process these sorts of emotional challenges?
I think, above all, he will want to make sure that she is under absolutely no pressure at all, doesn't feel any obligation to be royal, in any way. The priority is that she's a patient. She's got to get better, and that's all that matters. And if people say, "Oh, well, is she going to be at the Trooping the Colour or the Royal Ascot or whatever?" I mean, that's entirely down to her. He will be saying, "I don't want any pressure put on her whatsoever."
Does Charles have a tender side? Is he able to show empathy? How might his concern about his daughter-in-law manifest itself, or will he still keep that royal reserve, do you think?
Oh no, he's a very emotional man. I mean, when I was writing my book, one of his closest friends said of him, he said he can cry at a sunset. That one. He's immensely proud of all that she's done since she joined the royal family. He's devoted to her and to the children. I mean, he will have been as worried about her as William, as everybody else. But he is a very, as I say, he's an emotional man, and there won't be any sort of cold reserve there at all.
And he has been and will continue to be very reliant on the emotional and practical support of his wife, Queen Camilla, who has very much risen to the fore, really, in the last few weeks as a result of circumstances. She's become the leading sort of female royal, really, hasn't she?
Well, I think she's risen to the fore since the king became king. I mean, she's been at his side. She's been an absolute pillar of strength all the way through.
Even at the coronation, of course.
Yeah. No, I mean, the coronation. I mean, they were a great kind of double act.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was following them around in the run up to the coronation, during and after, and it was. They both depend on each other, but she will be very much front and centre. I mean, this week there's going to be a very, I think, very telling moment on Thursday. Thursday is Maundy Thursday, when this ancient ceremony, the Royal Maundy ceremony, happens, which was one of the favourite ceremonies of the late Queen. She absolutely adored it when the monarch hands out alms, as used to be, Maundy money, little sacks of special coins to deserving pensioners in a particular cathedral. It's in Worcester this year. and the Queen will be there. She'll be doing that on her own, and that's linking her back into a sort of royal ceremony that goes back over 800 years, and she will be front and centre of that, not the monarch.
Will the makeup and flavour of Charles's court change in the light of what we've seen in the last few weeks? Will it cause Charles to sort of rethink the whole project?
No, I don't think there'll be any kind of dramatic change. I mean, monarchy, as I say, it's actually a very versatile institution. I know we think it's very sort of hidebound, locked into sort of various protocols, but it just changes, it adapts. They can't suddenly bring in new, reinforcements because, there aren't any. So, I mean, it will fall on the other members of the family to do rather more of the sort of essential engagements, if you like, things like sort of investitures. But the constitutional duties, I mean, the king is doing all the constitutional duties we would expect of a monarch. I mean, don't forget, we were sort of in this sort of territory, possibly more so in the last years of Elizabeth II. I mean, there were, she was increasingly winding down because of her mobility issues. And yet, at no point was her authority in any way in question. She was the monarch, and he's very much the king. He's doing his red boxes. He was meeting ambassadors this week. If you look at where we were at the start of his diagnosis and where we are now, he's actually doing more, getting out more. He's no longer in one place. He's not just in Sandringham. He's moving around. He's at Windsor quite a bit, in London quite a bit. So, I mean, we don't know the precise medical prognosis, but I think we can look at his engagements and his determination to stick with the job, and he's in good spirits.
Some have said that he's paying the price right now for the slimmed-down format for the family. Is that fair?
Well, yes. I mean, the slimmed down phrase has been around a long time. I mean, it was, in a sense, it was inevitable. I mean, once the Sussexes left the scene, once Prince Andrew left the scene, it was going to.
They've slimmed themselves down, haven't they?
Yeah. I mean, the young generation are William and Catherine, and it's most of them are of pensionable age now, and that is the situation that the monarchy has to deal with at the moment. But you look back over. I mean, I started writing about the monarchy in the 90s, and the sort of crises they were facing then were of a different order of magnitude to this one.
Do you think Charles is going to be okay? He's a very robust personality and physically robust too. Are you hopeful that he'll make a good recovery and resume his duties as our monarch?
Yeah, I mean, we all wish him the very best. I mean, he's led a very sort of abstemious life. He's healthy, he's fit, in body and mind. Very. I mean, I think that if anybody could try and make him slow down a bit, I mean, that's the challenge, because, he does like, I mean, he likes staying up late, writing letters, reading. I mean, he's not he's not a sort of old-style Prince of Wales, like previous ones were, who were sort of, play hard and weren't terribly interested in the work element. He is a hard worker. He always has been. In his days as Prince of Wales, and nothing's changed on that score.
Robert Hardman, thank you so much. Let me tell my viewers and listeners about your amazing new book, and it's about King Charles. The book is called New King, New Court, Charles III, The Inside Story by Robert Hardman. Robert, thank you so much for coming in. Lots more to come, folks. We'll get US reaction to the awful news of the last 24 hours with Kinsey Schofield, the queen of US showbiz and royal reporting after 10. But next up, are men-only clubs sexist? Politics legend Christine Hamilton goes head-to-head with showbiz icon Christopher Biggins live in the studio. Sparks will fly.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We saw a very unsettled day on Saturday with lots of showers around, but things look quieter for Sunday, drier, brighter, with lighter winds too. Low pressure is anchored towards the northeast. That brought the very blustery northwesterly airstream. Lots of showers on Saturday. A little ridge of high pressure though moving in from the west, and that does promise to quieten things down as we go into Sunday. Still quite a few showers to contend with as we go through the first part of the night, but they will tend to become more focused towards the north and northwest during the early hours of Sunday, and with clearer spells developing elsewhere, the winds just starting to ease down a touch. We could see a touch of frost in some rural spots. Town and city temperatures holding up at 4 to 6 degrees, locally down closer to freezing though in rural areas. As we go into Sunday then, I say a much quieter day on the whole. Lighter winds, more in the way of sunshine around. Still 1 or 2 showers, mainly up towards the north and northwest. Still wintry over the hilltops in Scotland. And notice there's rain just gathering out towards the far west by the very end of the day. In the sunshine and with lighter winds, it should feel fairly pleasant. Temperatures peaking at 13 Celsius in the southeast. That's 55 in Fahrenheit. And as for the start of the new working week then, things will turn very wet out towards the west, quite blustery winds developing once again. Whereas out towards the north and east, we hold on to some bright weather at times, and temperatures not doing too badly still, certainly down towards the southeast, peaking again at around about 11 or 12 degrees. But things will generally turn more unsettled during the week ahead, so rain at times, and temperatures close to the seasonal average.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
It's Saturday night, so let's talk about men-only drinking clubs. The head of the civil service and the UK's MI6 spy chief have both quit the exclusive private members club, the Garrick Club, after a backlash for being part of a venue that excludes women. Simon Case and Richard Moore's resignation comes 2 days after the famous club's secretive membership list was published in The Guardian, revealing that women are not allowed. So are men-only clubs sexist, and what about women-only venues too? Is it nice to relax and hang out with people of your own gender, or is it horribly old-fashioned and regressive? Well, to debate this in just a moment, the fabulous Christine Hamilton, who is always welcome in my club. But first with me in the studio, legendary actor and presenter Christopher Biggins. Biggins, what do you think about the idea of a men-only venue? Is that an environment you'd be happy in?
It's not, actually. I mean, I adore the company of women, so, I mean, it's very important to me. But I think this, you know, it's just outdated now, I think. And I know that certain clubs that are just for men do allow women in to have dinner or special occasions and what have you.
Do they let them in to clean as well, perhaps?
I'm sure they do, and to wait at table. But, you know, it's a fascinating idea, and I think it is now, in this day and age, outdated. I mean, I think it was a lovely idea, and I was once made a member of not the Garrick, but the Savile Club by Winston Graham, who wrote the Poldark novels.
Right.
And I was out of my depth, because, you know, I went in there, and there are all these fuddy-duddy men, and you have a club table to sit at if you're on your own. But there is a wonderful story, because Sir Ralph Richardson was a member of the Garrick, of the Savile Club. And when you went in there and you sat on the table of the table if you're on your own, sort of with other members, you weren't allowed to be interrupted.
Is that right?
And so you had a little pad by the side of your table, and you wrote on there, soup of the day, egg and chips, and apple pie and custard. And one day, Ralph Richardson hadn't written anything, so this waitress had to interrupt him. She said, "Excuse me, sir, but it's 10 to 2. What would you like for lunch?" And he said, I'd like a jam omelette. So she went away and she came back and she said, Chef says, who's it for? And he said, tell Chef it's for Sir Ralph Richardson. And she came back 2 minutes later and said, Chef says no. And he turned to the man who was dining with and said, who'd you have to be to get a jam omelette? I mean, you know...
That is a wonderful story.
There are wonderful stories of all those just for men, you know. But, I mean, I think it's outdated now, and I think we should...
See, I very rarely disagree with you. We're aligned on so many issues, but I wonder whether sometimes it's nice to go to an environment where you're in male company. You don't have the peacocking. You don't have men showing off to impress other women. The guys can relax. They can loosen their tie. They can even let their belly hang out a bit. Men are so vain, and when women are around, they start showing off.
I suppose so. But I just think it's a little antiquated now, you know.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, let's bring the women in to enjoy that, because it is a wonderful life.
Well, I went to a club which I thought was actually worse than men only, because it allows women, but they can't sit at the main table.
Oh, no.
Which is, I mean, that's gender apartheid, isn't it?
Yes, that really is.
Let's bring in the formidable Christine Hamilton. Christine, what do you think about the idea of women's-only clubs? There is, after all, the Women's Institute.
I don't, honestly, Christopher, you're talking complete rubbish. Women's only clubs, why not? Men only, why not? Women like to get together just with their own sex. So do men. I don't see a problem at all. And I think gatherings that are just one sex they're different. There is a qualitative difference about them, and you cannot get that when you've got a multi-sex gathering. So I'm all in favour. What I do object to is when a men-only club says to women, you can come and dine, but you have to come in through another entrance. I was once invited by a boyfriend, I am talking about over 40 years ago, to the In-N-Out Club. And I suddenly realised when I got there that I was being told to go around the corner, not to the main entrance, which was very well known on Piccadilly. And I found myself sitting in the little well, and when he arrived down these, I said, why am I, what is this? What am I doing? And he explained it, and I said, I'm sorry, goodbye, I don't want dinner. I never saw him again. It was the sort of place where their men would sort of usher in their lady friends at night, and I thought that's ridiculous. If you're going to invite women in through the front door and treat them properly. But no, I'm all in favour, and I think when sex and gender are under attack, as they are at the moment, I think actually it's all the more important that real men and real women can get together with people that they know are 100% them. I mean, what happens to a transgender man or a transgender woman? Where do they go? I don't know. But no, I'm all in favour of them. I think they're fabulous. And for heaven's sake, us women, we need to get rid of our men from time to time. And let's just get them somewhere to go. Otherwise, they might have a mistress, for goodness sake. Had you thought about that, Christopher?
No, and by the way, Christina, I'm very glad you didn't give me the logistics of the In-N-Out Club, because it's a family show. But I'm glad that you turned down that invitation from that young ruffian and chose Neil instead. Before I come back to Christopher, can I ask you... Can you tell me about the pleasures of being in a female-only environment? What happens to women when guys are not there? What does that do to the atmosphere and the experience?
Okay, I'm going to tell you that. You are bonkers. What women do when they're on their own together is entirely up to women, and we are not going to tell men. But it is a totally different atmosphere. The older I get, the more I love my girlfriends. I really do. And they are supportive. I think you mentioned earlier that the men wanted to sort of preen themselves. Yeah. There is no competition, really. Well, there is a bit, of course. Everybody's looking at each other's wrinkles when you get to my sort of age. Basically, the sort of intersex competition just isn't there. I think they're fabulous, and I just don't see any problem. If you couldn't have all women clubs, then there would be a problem. But you can. You can have clubs just for this, just for that, just for the other. It's utterly ridiculous that everybody has to be shoved into one pool. Viva la difference, that's what I say.
Let's not have too much shoving, not on a Saturday night. What about this issue, the idea that people are comfortable with their own group, their own sex, Christopher? I mean, it's an old-fashioned idea. Will it survive, or do you think eventually the sort of woke Nazis will eliminate and do away with these these clubs?
Well, in a way, I hope they won't. I mean, by the way, Christine, I like nothing better than a girly lunch. And often I'm invited to a girly lunch, and they're fabulous because a lot of gossip is spread around, which is good. And we all like a bit of gossip now.
And also, have you noticed, Biggins, I don't want to interrupt you, but have you noticed how naughty women are when they get together?
Very naughty, and they like a drink.
Yes, they do.
You know, and you see them going in looking all gorgeous and prim and proper, and then when they leave, their hair's a bit dishevelled, you know, and they stagger a bit.
Most definitely.
You know, but I think I love the company of women, so I'm not sure what I think about this situation. I sort of like the idea, the old-fashioned idea, but I think it's out of date.
OK, last word, Christine.
Well, it's perfectly obvious that what Christopher wants to do is come to the all-girls events. You're very welcome, darling, because you're a wonderful addition to any gathering and any girly event that I go to or organise. You would be more than welcome.
That's it.
I'll see you there.
You're a brave man, Biggins. Strap yourself in, take protection. Thanks, Christine, and thank you, Christopher Biggins, who will return to the Mark Dolan Tonight studio very soon. Coming up in My Take at 10, England played an international football game today wearing a defaced England flag. The world's largest sportswear company has insulted an entire country. I'll be giving Nike a ticking off at 10. You won't want to miss it. But next up, we are remembering The Great Escape. 80 years. Unbelievable story. See you in 2.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, I'm sure you have seen this video that went viral this week, and if you haven't, well, I think you're going to enjoy it. This is a firefighter leaning on a fence whilst watching a trapped driving instructor's car sink in 4 feet of floodwater. Looks very comfortable there, doesn't he? Just leaning against the fence.
Just chilling, just relaxing. There were in fact 2 Essex fire and rescue crews, an ambulance and a police car parked near the sinking vehicle, but they wouldn't enter the water because they had to wait for specialist crews who were trained for the water depth.
Well, 2 people who weren't going to sit back and watch were these 2, Jack and Danielle Price, who took it upon themselves to rescue the submerged driver. And Danielle joins us now. Very good morning to you, Danielle, and you are a hero, an absolute hero. What happened in this video? Make sense of it for us.
So we were filming in the area for our YouTube channel, and we've seen the fire brigade come through. I was actually out at 5 o'clock in the morning with my husband, Jamie. We know it always happens there, as you can see, and it was clear. We've seen the fire brigade come through, we've followed them, and they're just standing around as if nothing's happened. In the clip, it says he's fine, he's on his phone, and then sort of walked away. But what they failed to realise is when my partner actually opened the door, as you can hear, he's on the phone to the emergency crew in panic, thinking he's going to sink. So we could not just sit there and watch. He's absolutely terrified.
Yeah, poor bloke. Well done, you. Do you reckon this is health and safety gone mad?
It is, because although I do sympathise with them, they are so red-taped, but surely sort of common sense has to kick in as open the door.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At 10 o'clock, I'll be dealing with Nike, who have insulted an entire country. But first, Mark Meets. March the 24th, 1944, 8 years ago sorry, 80, let me get that right. 80 years ago tomorrow, March the 24th, 1944, saw one of the most audacious projects carried out during World War II, the mass escape of Allied soldiers from the German prisoner of war camp Stalag Luft 3. The story of which was forever immortalised in the film The Great Escape, starring Steve McQueen. Although the bold escape, which was the largest attempted during World War II, didn't quite involve motorcycle jumps over barbed wire fences as in the movie, the true story is just as dramatic, as hundreds of men put their lives on the line to not only enjoy the taste of freedom once again, but to demonstrate their will against Hitler's tyranny. Well, Joanna Bristow-Watkins' father, squadron leader Alec Bristow, was one of those heroic men, and Joanna joins me now. Joanna, what a privilege to have you on the programme. So for those that don't know, could you tell us what was involved in the Great Escape? How did it start? What exactly happened?
Well, Roger Bushell found himself in the Stalag Luft 3, and it wasn't the first escape attempt that they'd had, but he had this audacious, as you said, idea to get, actually, I think originally he wanted to empty the whole camp, but he certainly settled on 200 men, and that was the plan, to get 200 men out on one night.
It's extraordinary.
From supposedly one of the most escape-proof prisons in the country.
How long did it take from planning to execution?
A few months, because they started with 3 tunnels that they were building all at once, and the plan was that if one got discovered, the others could go ahead. But various things happened. One of the tunnels was actually discovered a few months before the eventual escape on the 24th of March. And they had to lay low for a while because obviously the camp officers were a little bit more careful for a long time, and they had to lay low. So it took them a few months.
Well, it's unbelievable.
So, yeah, 300-foot tunnel.
Well, a 300-foot tunnel. Your father was involved. The men involved, including your dad, had to show physical courage and ingenuity. There's your dear dad. What a very fine and handsome man he was. This was an engineering challenge to dig those tunnels secretly.
Yes, because the Germans had, in fact, installed seismograph listening devices under the ground as well. So the tunnel had to drop 30 feet below the ground to avoid that. And the soil was very sandy and smelly, bright yellow, with the topsoil was grey. So, they had to remove all this sand and get rid of it, basically. If it had been noticed, then they would have known something was going on.
And your dear father, squadron leader Alec Bristow, did he tell you these stories when you were growing up? Was he comfortable talking about this remarkable feat?
I wish he'd talked about it a lot more. I mean, funnily enough, when he did talk about it was because we were watching the film. And as a child, he might say, oh, that happened, that didn't happen, there was no motorbike, as you said. So, that was when he mostly talked about it. Other than I'm sure he talked about it with other prisoners of war in their annual meetings, but it wasn't a topic of conversation unless we brought it up, really.
Worth noting what an enormous risk your father and those other men were taking by digging these tunnels. I mean, if they got caught, that wasn't going to go well, was it?
No, and there was quite a high risk of the tunnel collapsing on them as well, because as I've said, it was built in sand, and although they'd shored it with bedboards, it still had the odd collapses, and some people were buried in the tunnel when they were digging, although there weren't any fatalities, but they had, it was quite difficult to get them out. Yeah, so there was risk there as well.
It's a remarkable legacy that your father did that with those other soldiers, because so many people were freed. And also it was a significant moral blow for the Germans, wasn't it?
Well, that was really the main plan behind it, to just cause disruption locally. Yes, as you say, a morality lift, if you like, for the people back in the UK, because it was supposed to be an escape-proof camp.
And tell me about your dear dad. What kind of guy was he?
Well, he was he was very enigmatic. One or two people who met him said he was perhaps a little bit conceited. I think a lot of the pilots were.
I think he was entitled to be. I could talk to you for hours about this. Tomorrow's the 80th anniversary, and you're doing a great job to retell that important story. Thank you so much, Joanna Bristow-Watkins, whose father, squadron leader Alec Bristow, was one of those heroic men participating in the Great Escape. Next up, I will be dealing with sportswear company Nike, who have insulted an entire nation. I'll be dealing with this woke, illiberal company in no uncertain terms in just 5 minutes' time. You won't want to miss it.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We saw a very unsettled day on Saturday with lots of showers around, but things look quieter for Sunday, drier, brighter, with lighter winds too. Low pressure is anchored towards the northeast. That brought the very blustery northwesterly airstream. Lots of showers on Saturday. A little ridge of high pressure though moving in from the west, and that does promise to quieten things down as we go into Sunday. Still quite a few showers to contend with as we go through the first part of the night, but they will tend to become more focused towards the north and northwest during the early hours of Sunday, and with clearer spells developing elsewhere. The wind's just starting to ease down a touch. Could see a touch of frost in some rural spots. Town and city temperatures holding up at 4 to 6 degrees, locally down closer to freezing though in rural areas. As we go into Sunday then, a much quieter day on the whole. Lighter winds, more in the way of sunshine around. Still 1 or 2 showers, mainly up towards the north and northwest. Still wintry over the hilltops in Scotland. And notice there's rain just gathering out towards the far west by the very end of the day. In the sunshine and with lighter winds, it should feel fairly pleasant. Temperatures peaking at 13 Celsius in the southeast. That's 55 in Fahrenheit. And as for the start of the new working week then, things will turn very wet out towards the west, quite blustery winds developing once again. Whereas out towards the north and east, we hold on to some bright weather at times, and temperatures not doing too badly still, certainly down towards the southeast, peaking again at around about 11 or 12 degrees. But things will generally turn more unsettled during the week ahead, so rain at times, and temperatures close to the seasonal average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time is ticking on your chance to win the Great British Giveaway. There's a massive £12,345 in tax-free cash to spend however you like, along with £500 in shopping vouchers for your favourite store, a games console, a pizza oven and a portable Sonos smart speaker. And the best news? You could be our next big winner, just like Phil.
Didn't quite believe it and still can't. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats, and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB03 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday the 29th of March. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if watching or listening on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening, it's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online. In the United Kingdom and across the world, this is Mark Dolan Tonight. A busy hour to come. I'll be dealing with Nike, who have completely insulted a whole nation at the football today. But we've got a developing story. Do you mind killing the music for me, Josh? Because this is a statement just in to GB News and Mark Dolan Tonight. And it is a statement from Kensington Palace following the Princess of Wales's announcement of her cancer diagnosis. The statement reads as follows. The Prince and Princess are both enormously touched by the kind messages from people here in the UK, across the Commonwealth and around the world in response to Her Royal Highness's message. They are extremely moved by the public's warmth and support and are grateful for the understanding of their request for privacy at this time. There you go, a statement from the palace. Well, more on that in the news headlines shortly. Plus, how has this devastating royal news been received in the United States, where the Princess of Wales is a hugely popular figure? We'll be asking the Queen of US Royal Reporting, Kinsey Schofield, plus tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. So, a very busy hour to come. Lots to get through. Nike next. It's not going to be pretty, but first the news headlines and Sam Francis.
Mark, thanks very much. Good evening from the newsroom. We will, of course, have more on that recent announcement from Kensington Palace later this evening. But first to Russia, where the president is continuing to link Ukraine to last night's attack at a concert hall near Moscow, which killed, we understand, at least 143 people. Ukraine, though, has accused Vladimir Putin of attempting to deflect blame for the massacre. Neither Vladimir Putin nor the FSB have so far presented any proof of a link with Ukraine. Meanwhile, the United States says it believes the attack was carried out by a branch of the Islamic State terror group known as ISIS-K. In an address to the nation, President Putin said it was an attack on the Russian people, and he's vowed that justice would be served. Well, as Mark mentioned at the top of the hour, the Prince and Princess of Wales are said to be enormously touched and extremely moved by the outpouring of support across the globe following Kate's cancer announcement. In a statement released in the last few minutes, Kensington Palace have thanked the public for their kind messages. It's after Kate revealed she was undergoing preventative chemotherapy in an emotional video message on Friday evening. Well, we've been speaking to people in Birmingham who've shared their hope for Kate's privacy and an end to recent speculation.
It's got shocking, really. She's got young kids, she's got a family. I think that's probably the more upsetting thing about everything. The public eye and things doesn't really matter at the minute, does it?
I think it was a brave decision, and I think that will just awaken people's minds to how troublesome cancer is, and to be checked out themselves.
Yeah, it's very shocking, really, and obviously, it's 1 in 2 people are getting cancer now, so I think we all should be a little bit more respectful and just let her get on with it, and to recover with her family and just lay off her a little bit. I think she had a lot of scrutiny over the last few weeks.
Do stay with us throughout the course of the evening for more reaction and comment on that with Mark throughout the next hour. In other news, England's World Cup kit for 2026 will face a new FA vetting process after backlash over the multicoloured St George's Cross on their new Euro 2024 shirt. Nike has refused to rule out similar redesigns in the future, which has sparked more concern, with Rishi Sunak now warning against messing with the national flag. Reports from The Telegraph have suggested the FA are now planning an urgent review following claims that the person who signed off on the new shirt had failed to spot the change to that flag on the back of the collar. In Cheltenham, police are urgently searching for 3 missing siblings who are subject to a court order that prevents them from being in the care of their parents. 3-year-old Paulie, 5-year-old Jolene and 8-year-old Betsy were last seen with their mother on Friday, but their whereabouts is now unknown. The Gloucestershire Police Force say they are concerned for the children's welfare and they're asking anyone with information to contact the police immediately. And Britain is in the midst of the longest sustained rise in people missing work due to sickness since the 1990s. Research from the Resolution Foundations found that nearly 2.7 million people are too sick to work, with figures highest amongst youngest and oldest. The increase comes despite the overall labour market returning to normal following the pandemic, but it does mean that Britain is the only G7 economy not to have returned to pre-pandemic levels of employment as a whole. Those are the latest headlines. For more, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to GB News Alerts by going to our website, gbnews.com/alerts. Now, though, it's back to Mark.
Thanks, Sam. Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. How has the latest devastating royal news been received in the United States? We'll be asking the Queen of US royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Plus, tomorrow's newspaper front pages and live reaction in the studio from tonight's top pundits. This evening, TV personality and broadcaster Precious Muir, former Tory MP and farmer Neil Parish, and leadership coach and speaker Adrian Hayes. Plus, they'll be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros. A packed hour, and those papers are coming. But first, my take at 10. These imaginary culture wars, which we're told are a right-wing invention, seem to be getting more real by the day, don't they? The genius Roald Dahl gets a politically correct rewrite. The BBC axes the song Rule Britannia because it may offend some people before an embarrassing U-turn. 2 highly paid BBC stars snigger at the Union Jack flag on breakfast TV. The NHS deletes the word mother from literature about pregnancy. And it deletes the word woman from literature about the menopause. And speaking of women, Margaret Thatcher, a political genius who emancipated the British working class, transformed the economy, placed Britain on the world stage and won a war, is compared to Adolf Hitler by one of our top museums. What a time to be alive. In every school, in every university, in every government department, British values are being diminished, British history attacked, and the British way of life treated with contempt. But it's not just our public bodies that are in the grip of so-called woke ideology, which is a Britain-hating cult. Corporations are just as bad. Enter stage left Nike, a vast global multinational corporation who have decided to literally change the flag of England on the national football kit. Announcing the news on Twitter, Nike proudly announced that they have done a playful update to the flag of St. George, adding orange, purple and God knows what else, so as to make the flag completely unrecognisable. None of the original white on there, I should add, remains because, of course, white is bad these days. Hilariously, they say that this new look flag is there to unite and inspire. Well, that cacophony of colours on the shirt only inspired me to throw up. And what is the flag of a country there to do, if not to unite? That's what flags do. They bring people together, irrespective of their race, class, gender, sexual orientation, you name it. And this move is a bit rich from Nike, who pose as lovely, caring, sharing progressives who just want to make the world a better place whilst producing billions of tons of plastic and polyester every year, heading straight for landfill. It's a company that produces eye-watering amounts of pollution. And then there are the questionable human rights and working conditions of those poor folk stitching together their expensive fabrics in the third world. This move to change the national symbol of England is a profound insult to this country. How dare they touch the flag? Flags are sacred. They are historic, they are universal, they are permanent, they are perennial, they are a constant. And here is what they look like. Right. I hate to put my face out of vision for too long, but look at that. That is what the flag looks like. Flags are the one thing that bind us in these divided times. The Cross of St. George goes back to the Crusades, but who cares about 1,000 years of history when you can do a cheap publicity stunt? Nike say that this new flag is there to unite, but the public don't seem very united on it. The response on social media has been one of undiluted fury. Nike had the cheek to add that the new England 2024 home kit disrupts history with a modern take on a classic. Well, I think they're hiding in plain sight on that one. There is something darker at play here that we're seeing across the free world. An attack on the West, its history, its culture, its values, whether it's Land of Hope and Glory or Rule Britannia, and now the national flag of England. So-called wokeism hates what the West stands for and teaches countries like the UK and the USA to be ashamed of their past rather than proud. What better illustration is there than the defacing of the national flag? So, will Nike be changing the sacred pride flag, which alienates many women and gay people? I won't hold my breath. Will they change their own US flag to render it unrecognisable? I doubt it. Would they dare to redo the Chinese flag, where they have millions of customers? It ain't going to happen. Will they change the Palestinian flag? I wonder how that would go down in the Middle East. This is clearly Nike's Bud Light moment in the UK, and they will pay the price. That's the only way that you can really hurt these people in their wallets, because Nike don't care about anything really except making money. Everything else is virtue signalling and PR. They have no heart, they have no soul. But people power will make them think twice next time. I predict that sales of these pathetic, multicoloured tops will be awful, with even the ultra-woke Sir Keir Starmer condemning the move. Britain is a global beacon of diversity, the most successful melting pot society in the world and arguably in history. So we don't need any help from this global corporation in defining ourselves, and we don't need them interfering with the national flag, which represents a major part of the United Kingdom. Nike are famous for the catchphrase, "Just do it." Well, in my view, they can just do one. Do one, Nike. I'm not having it. Folks, your reaction, mark at gbnews.com. I think it's a profound insult. I'll get to your emails shortly, but first, my top pundits. TV personality and broadcaster Precious Muir, former Tory MP and farmer Neil Parish, and leadership coach and speaker Adrian Hayes. Adrian, I'll start with you because you've fought for your country. Your reaction to this desecration of the flag?
Well, I'm going to go home tonight and burn my Nike running shoes as my mark of protest. Look, flags are they're very precious things. And I think you said it, Mark. I can think of many countries who'd be rioting on the streets tonight if their flags were desecrated like this. The Scandinavians, the Argentinians, the French riot for anything. But I think, and yet we seem to accept it. And I think the FA is complicit in this as well. Yeah. And I'm not accepting it. This is a big thing. There's a difference between patriotism and nationalism. Very different things. The flag's a mark of history. We should be proud of it. And this, whether it's a degeneration against the St. George Cross or a take on the rainbow flag, they're trying to undermine this country. And again, for the sake of profit at the expense of culture and society. So, yes, totally against it. And I'll be speaking more later.
Neil Parish, why is England in particular seen as such a soft touch? We're not allowed to celebrate St. George's Day, are we? Waving the flag is considered xenophobic by some people. Why are the English so readily discarded?
Yes, I think there is a problem because I think you've got very much a sort of national identity of Scotland and Wales, and I think England, by far the biggest part of the United Kingdom, really is not represented in the way it should be. And I think Nike just decided that this was a sort of fashion item, and let's actually sort of change it and make it look more colourful. I mean, at the end of the day, the Football Association, they're the ones who, for goodness sake, who was it? Were they colourblind when they looked at this and not to see that it had been changed? When you have a national football team, you've got huge fans that support that nation, and the Welsh will support their nation, the Scots the same, the Northern Irish, but England will support it to the core, and so you have got to have the English flag on it, and it's just crazy. And so therefore I think, while you're absolutely right to have a go at Nike, I actually think what on earth possessed the Football Association to allow this to happen. And dare I say it, Mark, I don't suspect it will happen again.
I doubt it will, but Precious Muir, perhaps the FA and Nike just wanted to freshen up these shirts. You get a new one every season. They put some different colours in. Perhaps it wasn't their intention to sort of dilute the English flag. It was just a kind of fun update. It's a fashion item. It's an item that's just there to look good. Maybe we're overreacting.
I think I'm always going to be for fashion because I love fashion. It's like, through and through. But it doesn't make sense to change something that doesn't need changing. And in my opinion, Nike knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to sell shirts. And obviously updating a shirt every time, a true fan is going to go out and buy this shirt. And that's what they wanted to do. Adding that tiny little adjustment makes that fan go, oh, I need that new shirt. I need to buy that. But at the end of the day, it backfired because they don't want that change. That was the change they shouldn't have made. They should have left the flag as it is. That's what I believe. And I honestly think that a shirt that costs £125 each time, they're really trying to make a profit of those fans, and it's not fair. I think if it's not needed, don't change it. And in my opinion, it doesn't need changing.
Is it unfair, though, Precious, to accuse Nike of having this agenda to dilute Western values, to dilute English patriotism? Perhaps all they were doing was just adding some colour to their clothes, which is what they do, and they're very successful at it.
I think they were doing it in the wrong way. You could add colour to the rest of the actual material. Put it on the side, put it on the top, put it on the collar. Nothing to do with the flag needs to be changed. At the end of the day, they would never do it to another country. Why do it to ours?
But football fans... Look,
True football fans will never, ever accept that shirt,
are
I'm
the
telling
most
you.
partisan, and that's what they do. They go out to support not only their country, but their teams, their towns, their cities. They love it, don't they? And that is what they want to see on the shirt. And what on earth Nike are doing, and like I said, and what on earth are the Football Association doing?
But I hope football fans vote with their feet and don't buy this shirt. And you said it, Mark. I mean, this is the Ben & Jerry's moment. It's Costa's, it's Bud Lights. I mean, Nike are in danger of having a collapsing share price.
They want to jump on the bandwagon and change.
It's virtue signaling to the fore. But this flag is a very, as Precious said, you can change the design of the shirt, anything. But this flag is just a little thing on the collar. That is sacred. Don't change it.
Well, listen, let me tell you that I'm an Irishman. My parents came to the UK in the 1960s. I was born in this country. It's the greatest country in the world, and I love England. I love the United Kingdom, and I'm not afraid to say it. And there's the flag that tells you everything I think about this great country. I won't wear it for the whole show because it doesn't go with the pink tie, I think you'll agree. But come on, England! There you go. There you go. Look, Neil Parish is still talking. I tell you, I've got the most exciting pundits. Next up, we've got to get to America, because how has the latest devastating royal news been received in the United States? We'll be asking the Queen of US royal reporting, someone that has always had a very soft spot for Princess Catherine. Kinsey Schofield is next.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Seriously couldn't get my head around it. Electric ambulances. The government are planning to spend our money, over $500 million, on a fleet of electric net zero ambulances. Even being told this alarm bell should be ringing, most of the people I know who have an EV have got rid of it because of range anxiety and the inconvenience having simply just got too much for them. Frankly, they never do as much as they say they will anyway. First of all, they are totally impractical. The ambulances will take some 4 hours to charge each, so it will be out of action for that time. They will need space and individual chargers and heaven forbid, they need to do more than the 70 to 80 miles capability, which will be somewhat diminished depending on weather conditions and presumably the use of life-saving equipment to keep their patients alive, which I'm guessing will be powered by the same battery. Apparently, the NHS is committed to making all new emergency ambulances electric by 2030 and the entire fleet by 2045. In England alone, this would cost over £600 million. While electric cars don't produce any emissions from the tailpipe, there are emissions involved in the manufacture, as well as the production of the electricity used to charge them. So anyone driving an EV thinking what a great job they're doing needs to think again. Ambulances are usually changed every 5 years, and at about £150,000 per vehicle, the new EV version would need to be on the road for over 15 to make it commercially viable. So why should the public pay for this? In my view, it's commercially irresponsible and putting our lives at risk for the sake of an ever-questioning green agenda, which will bankrupt the country and is not in the best interest of the patients.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Well, let's get more now on the devastating cancer diagnosis for the Princess of Wales in the company of the Queen of US Royal Reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, our chats on a Saturday night are always fun, they're always delightful, and they're always positive, but we're not able to be tonight. The most awful news regarding Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales. You've always loved this woman. You've got a particular soft spot for her. Your reaction when you heard the news and you listened to that video, watched that video yesterday?
Well, initially tears and then immediate anger. It feels, from a royal commentator standpoint, who has really never in her life had to respond to random people online on international television. It felt like the Princess of Wales was kind of forced to come out and give us this very private information before the deadline of Easter, which she had asked for, because there was so much vicious online speculation. And that really disappointed me because, I'm going to be honest, it felt like she had become a punchline in the United States. Look at the just absolute evil that Stephen Colbert vomited on his late night program. John Oliver, the same, vulgar, gross about his jokes about the Princess of Wales. Andy Cohen from Bravo. Kim Kardashian has yet to issue an apology over her "on my way to find Kate" joke. Thankfully, Blake Lively did issue an apology for her joke at the expense of the Princess of Wales. But I think that there's a lot of envy that comes from the United States because the royals, especially Catherine, is so perfect, seems so perfect. Her life seems perfect. She's beautiful. She lives in a castle. She's got a handsome prince husband, beautiful babies. So I think that they jumped on the bandwagon as quickly as they could when it came to some of these conspiracy theories.
So my initial, aside from upset and tears, I immediately became angry that we had allowed this to happen. This was abuse towards a woman that was going through something very serious and something very traumatic for her and her young family.
And how are the wider American public receiving this news? Because she is one of the most famous people in the world, one of the most famous women in America.
Absolutely. I mean, just to give you an idea of her popularity here in the States, the search term Kate Middleton is the #1 search term, followed by Donald Trump, then Joe Biden. And these two are in a race for the White House. According to CNBC, since January of 2024, the Princess of Wales has had over 230,000 articles written about her, compared to Joe Biden and Donald Trump combined at approximately 101,000 articles written about them. So she's triple the size of these two individuals that at one point or another were the most powerful men in the world. Over 13 billion views if you search Kate Middleton on TikTok. So she's a very significant figure, and she remains, despite all of this, and probably increased because of this, the most popular member of the royal family here in the United States.
Most definitely. You've been a royal watcher since you were a little girl. I think your first idol was Princess Diana. And the name of your very popular podcast, and indeed your website, is To Die For Daily, which is wordplay on Princess Diana. And I think that she's only been sort of succeeded in your affections by Princess Catherine. What is it about this young woman that wins your heart?
I mean, I think that she just radiates purity and goodness. I don't know what any other way to describe it. She seems, and I've had the pleasure of being around her, not only in the States, but over in your neck of the woods, just when she's at a royal engagement. She seems like a very kind individual. She stops and talks to everyone. She's very engaged when she communicates with them. But we've also had the pleasure of really growing up with her. We lost Princess Diana at 36 years old. We've known the Princess of Wales since she was a young girl at school at St. Andrews with Prince William. And we've seen her grow up from being that fun, spirit-free, or, just like absolute like free spirit on the slopes and in the water with Prince William, to the evolution of this very sophisticated, graceful mother and fashion icon. And it's been fun to see that evolution. You feel more connected to her because you've been along for the ride.
Indeed so. I was a vocal critic of the photograph that was ultimately pulled by 5 major news agencies. My focus was the palace's handling of that story. I don't think they've handled it well, because after that Mother's Day photo, there was the speculation. Do you think that the palace authorities have pause for thought in terms of how they've communicated this all along?
Well, knowing what I know now, I feel like it was the least of their concerns. I feel like they probably thought, to me, I think the most upsetting part about watching that video from the Princess of Wales, which was recorded on Wednesday at Windsor, and I'm sure that that's honestly what they were more focused on, how they were going to execute this. I think that what hurt me the most was there was a sense of fear. I mean, no matter what, she is stoic, she is brave, she's courageous, she's beautiful. But I sensed a little bit of fear in her voice throughout the process. And that's what made me the most emotional about it. So I do feel like the palace's objective was, how do we handle this really big, really scary news? How do we present it to the world? And so that they're still confident in the royal family and that they support this family going forward and give them the privacy that they need and that they're requesting.
Most definitely. Kinsey, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully we'll speak in a happier context next week when you join us on Mark Dolan tonight. There you go. Well, look, it's all over the papers. It's the only story in town. We'll reflect on what has been a devastating 24 hours for the royal family with my top pundits. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We saw a very unsettled day on Saturday with lots of showers around, but things look quieter for Sunday, drier, brighter,
with lighter winds too. Low pressure is anchored towards the northeast. That brought the very blustery northwesterly airstream. Lots of showers on Saturday. A little ridge of high pressure though moving in from the west, and that does promise to quieten things down as we go into Sunday. Still quite a few showers to contend with as we go through the first part of the night, but they will tend to become more focused towards the north and northwest during the early hours of Sunday, and with clearer spells developing elsewhere, the winds just starting to ease down a touch. We could see a touch of frost in some rural spots. Town and city temperatures holding up at 4 to 6 degrees, locally down closer to freezing though in rural areas. As we go into Sunday then, a much quieter day on the whole. Lighter winds, more in the way of sunshine around. Still 1 or 2 showers, mainly up towards the north and northwest. Still wintry over the hilltops in Scotland. And notice there rain just gathering out towards the far west by the very end of the day. In the sunshine and with lighter winds, it should feel fairly pleasant. Temperatures peaking at 13 Celsius in the southeast. That's 55 in Fahrenheit. And as for the start of the new working week then, things will turn very wet out towards the west, quite blustery winds developing once again. Whereas out towards the north and east, we hold on to some bright weather at times, and temperatures not doing too badly still, certainly down towards the southeast, peaking again at around about 11 or 12 degrees. But things will generally turn more unsettled during the week ahead, so rain at times, and temperatures close to the seasonal average.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
It's just gone 10:30, so time for tomorrow's front pages. And we start with the Sunday Mirror. William and Kate's message. Thank you for your warmth and support. We are both so touched. The Prince and Princess of Wales expressed their gratitude, and a cancer survivor says she will beat it like I did. Sun on Sunday now. Kate had emotional lunch with King. The Princess of Wales and the King had a heart-to-heart at Windsor Castle hours before she announced that she had cancer. The email on Sunday, Princess of Courage. Kate, I'm so touched by everyone's outpouring of love. Sunday Times, Kate wrote every word to reassure the nation. And murderous stroll of Moscow terrorists. New security fears as China targets Westminster again. And Peter Mandelson's warning over Labour union rights plan. I'll bring you more on that shortly. Sunday Telegraph now. Prince's pride at courage of his wife. A nation is in shock as the princess faces her toughest test, says Alison Pearson. And Russia warned not to use Moscow attack to intensify the Ukraine war. The Observer, Putin claims arrested gun attackers were fleeing to Ukraine and revealed the deadly tactics used to keep migrants from our shores. Daily Star Sunday is the last front page. Kate's cancer fight. Celebs grovel over insults to Princess. Now they are sorry? ? The great Kate climb down was in full swing tonight as celebs like Blake Lively and conspiracy crackpots rushed in to apologise to the princess and delete messages posted before she told of her cancer fight. Those are your front pages. Let's get full pundit reaction now from who should I say? I'm going to get my pundits up here. We've got TV personality and broadcaster Precious Muir, former Tory MP and farmer Neil Parish, and leadership coach and speaker Adrian Hayes. I feel very torn on this, Precious Muir, because on the one hand, the Princess of Wales, Catherine, is on every paper.
Yes.
And probably if you tuned in to most radio stations, most TV networks, it's what we're talking about. But then I get emails from my viewers saying, please give it a rest, stop talking about this woman and let her recover. Yeah. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. I think that the fact that the video has come out, which I've been saying myself personally on Twitter, I think finally has put the, you know, all of the stuff that's been coming out on social media and everyone chatting about it, hopefully it's put that to rest. But the problem is it kind of did take too long to come out. And I know maybe she wasn't up for it, and she wasn't up to it. And this is why the delay of the video only just recently came out. But all the things they did before shouldn't have happened.
Well, I
think
agree.
that
This is my concern.
And you know, the sitting in the car and taking pictures from afar, and all of those things should never have happened.
Well, my focus was never Catherine, but I feel that the palace authorities failed to handle this story, this crisis.
Yeah.
And I think that's what fed the conspiracy theories, which I am on record as always calling nonsense, because it was nonsense. But it happened because of poor management by the firm. That's my view.
Yeah, I think that they weren't being advised by the right people at the time, because anybody who is doing PR marketing, or even just, you know, taking care of managing talent or managing someone of this level, you would advise them not to speak out at all. Just don't say anything, don't react, don't put out pictures that, you know, have been edited, and just wait until you're ready, Kate, and then do the video, give the public what they want to hear.
Because there was no speculation, there was no furore before the Mother's Day image was released.
Exactly.
And it was that dodgy image.
And that's what added fuel to the fire.
Right.
And the conspiracies just lit up, and then everything on the X and Twitter was just insane. Instagram, everything was crazy.
Neil?
Yeah, but I think the trouble is, I mean, social media had gone mad, and I think she was left with no alternative. I think she probably panicked slightly with the photograph that went out, but I think, you know, then for her to have to go on and with a very emotional appeal, I think put huge pressure on her. I mean, what I took from the video was that she had to make sure the children knew about it and settled the children, and surely we must remember that while they are the royal family, they're also a family, for goodness sake. And I think we demand too much of our royals. And I know perhaps if you're a royal, you know, you are in the limelight, but they're not politicians. They don't necessarily choose to do it. They are the royal family.
Yeah, I think
and don't forget, you know, Kate is married into the royal family.
That's true, yes.
And so therefore, and I think she is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think we just got to leave her alone now to recover. And for goodness sake, stop all this speculation.
Well, should we stop talking? Should we be moving on to other subjects?
Yes. I tweeted today or yesterday saying, look, whatever's happened, let's let her recover in peace and quiet.
Yeah.
And
now we've got the official video.
The airwaves were pretty good today. They covered a few things, but there was a lot more stories. Because I think the trouble with this country, we become so obsessed with one single story, 24/7. That's all you hear for weeks on end. So I think it's generally good. But the Sunday papers naturally have got a full barrage of about the story.
And more power to them, because they know that their readers are deeply concerned about the welfare of Princess Catherine, as my viewers and my listeners as well. And all we can say is we pray for a speedy recovery for that remarkable, fabulous young woman. Let's get on to some politics, shall we? Former Cabinet Minister Simon Clarke has told the Mail on Sunday that they only need a couple more letters to trigger a no-confidence vote in Rishi Sunak. The same article claims Dominic Cummings is the orchestrator of the Tory destruction. So is even more Tory chaos on the way? Neil Parish, you should know. You're a former Tory MP.
This is again conspiracy theory, isn't it? You know, what you've got to do is say we're almost there. We only need 2 more letters. They've probably only got 20 letters, if that. But you see, you always do this. And at the moment, like I said, the kamikazes haven't run out of planes, have they? And they are just carrying on and carrying on. earth do they think they're doing? A total distraction, because the one thing they've got to face is they've got to face the general election with Rishi Sunak as the Prime Minister, as the leader, and face the music, because it will turn round and they can have a fighting chance in the general election. But at this stage, it's just total distraction. And if people think, you know, if you think you're going to vote for a party that is busy destroying itself, and where are they going to find this magical leader from? And I don't think, you know, you could have whatever leader you could find at the moment, and I don't think it would make much difference to the opinion polls and how people are going to vote, because they want to change, and the more they see the Tories scrapping and fighting each other and being so vicious with one another, why would you vote for a party like that? And don't forget, I am a Tory, right? And I'm watching it from outside, and I know some of these individuals, and they are nasty. Remember what, you know, it's a family show, but remember what John Major used to call them, beginning with a B?
The B word.
And therefore, you know, and I think in some ways, dare I say it, Rishi Sunak is actually too nice. And I think perhaps he ought to settle a few scores, because I think at the moment they are just being vicious.
Who do you care to name names of who these bastards are?
No, I won't name names, but I think it's fair.
Precious has never heard that word, by
the way. It's fairly, you know, I mean the ones behind this, you know, and then of course, I mean Dominic Cummings, of course. I mean he's an interesting man who has just decided now that he has been scorned by the Conservative Party, been scorned by his previous boss, Boris, and he is out for vengeance. And there is nobody worse than somebody that is out for vengeance. But at the end of the day, you know, the Conservative Party, the Tory Party, is a serious party, and it is actually in government. But you wouldn't believe it, would you, at the moment, that the Tory party is actually in government, because the more they actually look in on themselves, the more they turn off the voters. And this is why the whole thing's crazy.
Adrian, I'm going to come to you in a second, but obviously a former Tory MP in the studio. This is a great opportunity to really, really grill you. Dominic Cummings, one of the masterminds behind Vote Leave, and Boris Johnson's remarkable epoch-defying 2019 election landslide. So he's a smart man. He's got a winning track record. What do you think his plan is? Could he offer his support as a strategist to reform UK?
He could well do. I would advise them against it for the simple reason that I think while he's a very clever man, he's also very extreme and will also go off at the deep end. And I don't think he's got any empathy with anybody. He's got a political strategy. And he can be good at that. I mean, what he was good at, it was targeting the red wall seats when the Labour Party ignored Brexit, and so therefore there was a particular theme, and he was good at that. But that doesn't mean to say he can repeat it necessarily in this general election. And what I would fear with Dominic Cummings, and I've got to be a little bit careful what I say, but is
he does watch the show?
Yes, does he? Yes, he'll come after me, I'm sure. But I just believe that he is not rational at times. I think
he's a bull in a china shop.
That's a polite way of putting it. Yeah. And I think you'll find this election will, in the end, whether we like it or not, be about rationality. And I don't think Dominic Cummings is your boy for that.
Adrian, what's going to happen? Do you think Rishi can survive until October or November?
Just about, I think so. But whatever happens, I think the Tory party is going to have a wipeout. And I think this is going to be an absolutely fascinating election, because the Tory party's great weapon they've always had ever since I've been alive, is vote X, you get Labour. Yeah. And that isn't going to cut this election, because Labour is going to win whatever happens. There's no doubt about it. What I'm fascinated to see is how the smaller parties go, whether the voters vote with their hearts rather than just going with what they've always done. There's one poll today I heard is Reform is now equal with the Tory party, YouGov poll tonight. But it's crying out for leadership in the Tory party. And you asked Neil the question, who else is there to take? There is no leadership in the cabinet of that party. Sorry, Neil. But maybe she should stand again.
Perhaps I should stand again and stand for leader. But seriously, I think the whole thing...
I think you'd be a great Prime Minister.
...is absolutely crazy now, because, you see, the more the opinion polls go towards reform, the more frightened the Tory MPs become, and the more they go for their leader. And then that makes them even more unpopular. I mean, this is madness in its entirety.
If you were a Tory backbencher worrying about your seat, would you be backing Rishi Sunak tonight?
I think the fact that Obama had to stop in number 10 to have a chat, I think he's really just...
about?
Well, we don't really know what the chat was about, but hopefully he was trying to show him what a true leader looks like and give him some tips, because he's just failing in the polls and he's just not going to get the votes that he thinks he's going to get.
OK, fascinating stuff. Well, many more newspaper front pages to come, some cracking stories from inside as well, plus my pundits will be nominating their headline heroes and back page zeros of the day. Lots to get through. See you in 2.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
And I'd like to talk about Kate Middleton, because I'm really confused here. Everyone, where is she? What is she doing? Why did she Photoshop this? Where this, what that? Why can't we just leave her alone? What is going on here? What's your thoughts on this?
I think it's tough because naturally, you know, if I was looking at this and we didn't have all the context of everything that's gone on in the royal family previously, I would be saying leave her alone. But at the same time, I think that the royal family have made a huge mistake by setting a certain precedent when it comes to Meghan. And I think that when you've kind of branded Meghan as the one that's demanding privacy, but then not really realising that she's got a particular role and a duty and has to kind of be paraded in front of us no matter what, then you end up in a position now when Kate really needs the privacy and she can't get it because we're so used to being in their business and finding out everything about them, even after they've given birth. That precedent
I get
when
that,
the women...
but what if it's a mental health issue? What if it's something like that? Or a long, ongoing physical thing that she doesn't want to talk about?
But you know what it is? It's because everyone sees the royal family as like ambassadors, so they're thinking, well, she's at home, and some people controversially will be like, well, we need to see her. She's like the face of multiple charities. They're basically, unfortunately, with the royal family, if they're not seen, people are like, well, what's the point of them? And I know that sounds harsh, but, you know, this is not some person that... She can't work from home.
Well, she's been described as the golden goose.
100%.
I mean, they rely on her a lot, don't they? I mean, she's front page of the newspapers whenever she steps out. It's been amazing, actually, seeing photos of her this morning, how much we all miss her. You know, we haven't seen her since just after Christmas. What do you think about her being the one to apologise?
Having her take the rap for it, even if she did do it, I think that was quite unfair, really, and they should have had, you know, a bit of a better strategy.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Well, we're talking about Rishi Sunak on the brink. The emails are coming in thick and fast. Anne says, good evening, Mark. I'm a Conservative Party member who did not vote for Sunak and want someone else as leader. I would never vote for smarmy Tice. Why does a seemingly right-wing news channel blatantly back Reform UK, which will usher in a Labour government? Annie, thank you so much for that. Of course, the channel does not verify or support any particular party. We've got a broad church here, and I certainly think that Sunak is underrated. But look, that's an underrepresented view, an unfashionable view, I can't lie, but I specialise in those, don't I? This from Mark, who says, good evening, Mark. No true Conservatives can vote for the party with Sunak as leader. He's betrayed anyone who has ever voted Tory. New leader, absolutely. And last but not least, on Nike, that was the take at 10. They've insulted a whole nation by defacing the English flag. David says, hi, Mark, job done. I've ordered Adidas. Don't mess with my flag. Well done, David. There you go. People power in action. More front pages, and it's the Sunday Express, and understandably, it is about the Princess of Wales. And the headline is, a nation touched by Kate's courage. Brave princess wins worldwide admiration for poignant video, and rightly so. Also, my royal hero, cancer survivor Mila, sends heartfelt message to her special friend. Wonderful sentiment. Now, this story is in the Times, and let's have a look at this. End school protests that forced a teacher into hiding, says Gove advisor. A review by a government advisor calls for a ban on demonstrations outside schools after the treatment of a Yorkshire teacher who has felt abandoned and suicidal. Why has this taken so long? Adrian Hayes, you know the story. This is a teacher who showed a class an image of the Prophet Muhammad as a educational tool, had the context established, explained that they were about to do this. It wasn't even just an outright image of Muhammad, it was an illustration in a magazine to highlight a media story. This person's still on the run in modern Britain.
And that's the most disturbing thing about the story. We can argue about the rights and wrongs of what he did at school. I don't think there was anything particularly wrong with it.
Well, we don't have blasphemy laws, so technically he did nothing wrong.
But it's the fact that 3 years later, and what I've read before reading this, that he's still in hiding, still got police protection, things like this. This is outrageous in this country. And again, there's so many times I've asked myself over stories that come up, where are the government? I mean, Michael Gove is now speaking now. Why has it taken 3 years to sort this story out? Because it's pretty outrageous.
Are they afraid?
Well, that's the whole point. You know, afraid of offence and all the rest of it, treading carefully. But, you know, you can't have someone like this just in hiding, fearing for his life.
Is this an example of mob rule now? Is that an issue that we've got? We've seen it with those marches at the weekend, Labour trying to get votes cancelled for fear of recriminations. Is this all the sort of similar theme?
I've had a bit of a neutral stance on the marches. There's a lot of genuine people on the Palestinian marches, and it's not just mob rule, as some of the media has claimed. So I wouldn't put that in there. But the school protests and what is happening, this is very unsavoury.
It really is. Precious Muir, your headline hero of the day.
My headline hero is Barack Obama, because I think for the fact that he actually went to help out Rishi Sunak in this kind of dire need, that he needs some advice. I think he's the best person that could actually show him the ropes and show him what a leader looks like.
There you go. Neil, your headline hero.
The Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales. I think the way she's handled now the situation and come out in a very emotional video, and also, you know, the support not only for her but for others with cancer. And I think, you know, she's had to suffer so lot, and she's had to suffer so much with social media and speculation. And I think, you know, now's the time to really celebrate her as a hero and leave her now in peace to recover and the family to come back together.
Well said. Couldn't put it better myself. Adrian, your headline hero.
I've gone for something a little bit unfashionable, unknown. Director Martin Durkin and producer Tom Nelson for the film or the documentary Climate the Movie, which was released this week. I watched it on Thursday night. It's brilliant. It debunks the science, particularly, not that the Earth isn't warming, but the fact that CO2 is the enemy that we claim it is. It follows the money and the industry that's been built around net zero. And above all, at the end, it shows how the poor in the developing countries are suffering from our net zero regulations. I urge everyone to watch this film and make their own mind up.
What is your view, then, of climate change and how to tackle it, if we do at all? What if you were sort of world king, what would your solution be? Because would you agree there's more flooding, more forest fires, that sort of thing?
That's being debunked as well in the film.
Extreme weather? I mean, 40 degrees in the UK last summer?
there is no... Look at the evidence. They go back to the 1930s. They go back to, you know, hundreds of years ago when the Earth was much hotter as well. But all the science has been sort of debunked for this. But there's no doubt that we are in a warming period since records began, 1850s, when we were in a very cold period. So I think it's... But the whole point with me about net zero is what exactly is the objective? If you're going to say it's to save the planet, I say no. The planet will look after itself very well. So is it to save lives? Very admirable concept. Well, which lives? It's not... Well, it's all lives. Climate change has no borders. Yeah. Rubbish. I've lived in the Middle East for 20-odd years. We can survive very well at those temperatures if you have the money. So if it's poor lives you're after saving, OK, well, fine. Well, what about putting it to tuberculosis, malaria? There's trillions of dollars, and this is what the film covers.
My problem is I lost trust in the authorities after COVID because I think that the reaction was wrong. Well, listen, I've a couple of seconds before you're... but are you seeing climate change in the farm?
Yes, but I think it is also a pattern of different weather, and I think the trouble is that there is, where I agree with you absolutely, is that there's been a whole industry now around carbon credits and all of these things, and they
follow the money.
They don't actually help.
Couple of seconds. Backpage hero. Who is it?
Backpage zero, Donald Trump.
OK.
Because, obviously, I mean, he owes $464 million.
Poor Donald's in trouble? Yeah. Backpage zero?
The terrorists who bombed the Russian theatre. Terrible.
One word. Nike.
What a brilliant set
opportunity.
Clever man. Listen, really enjoyed my pundits' company tonight. Really enjoyed your company. Thanks to the team for working so hard. I'm back tomorrow for Mark Dolan tonight. Big Opinion, Take a 10 and much more. Headliners is next.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We saw a very unsettled day on Saturday with lots of showers around, but things look quieter for Sunday, drier, brighter, with lighter winds too. Low pressure is anchored towards the northeast. That brought the very blustery northwesterly airstream. Lots of showers on Saturday. A little ridge of high pressure though moving in from the west, and that does promise to quieten things down as we go into Sunday. Still quite a few showers to contend with as we go through the first part of the night, but they will tend to become more focused towards the north and northwest during the early hours of Sunday, and with clearer spells developing elsewhere, the winds just starting to ease down a touch. We could see a touch of frost in some rural spots. Town and city temperatures holding up at 4 to 6 degrees, locally down closer to freezing though in rural areas. As we go into Sunday then, a much quieter day on the whole. Lighter winds, more in the way of sunshine around. Still one or two showers, mainly up towards the north and northwest. Still wintry over the hilltops in Scotland. And notice there rain just gathering out towards the far west by the very end of the day. In the sunshine and with lighter winds, it should feel fairly pleasant. Temperatures peaking at 13 Celsius in the southeast. That's 55 in Fahrenheit. And as for the start of the new working week then, things will turn very wet out towards the west, quite blustery winds developing once again. Whereas out towards the north and east, we hold on to some bright weather at times, and temperatures not doing too badly still, certainly down towards the southeast, peaking again at around about 11 or 12 degrees. But things will generally turn more unsettled during the week ahead, so rain at times, and temperatures close to the seasonal average.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still time to win our giveaway packed with seasonal essentials. First, there's an incredible £12,345 in tax-free cash to be won. Cash to make your bank account bloom. Plus a spring shopping spree with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in the store of your choice. And finally, a garden gadget package, including a handheld games console, a portable smart speaker and a pizza oven. For another chance to win the vouchers, the treats and £12,345 in tax-free cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number